Hello, my name is Miss Clett. I hope you guys have a great day. Today we're going to talk about evolution and biodiversity. If at any time you need to pause the video, please do so. This is at your own pace. So here we go. So, what is evolution and how does it impact all species? What is natural selection? What is adaptation and the different types? What's the difference between endangered and extinction? Well, to start it all off and everything, let's start talking about Charles Robert Darwin. He was an English naturalist. He's the one who got us started with observations on the Galapagos Islands and how some of the finches all look similar, but yet all look different. And he's the one who came up with the idea that evolution has come into occurrence. So, evolutionary theory is the change in the hereditary characteristics of groups of organisms over the course of generations. This is a process by Darwin, what he refers to as the descendants with modifications. Like the theories of the brain, eventually at some point, we've had some sort of change in our brains and such, but these are just examples of how throughout time species have changed. For example, we still have new breeds of dogs being formed every single day. Um, Same with species. So we got two different types. We got microevolution happening on smaller scales, change in gene frequencies within a single population. So, for example, we have the different types of finches. They're the same ancestors, however, through time and everything on the different islands, um, each species of finches all evolved differently, just based on the type of resources and foods and what was the best thing to help them become successful in those environments. Macroevolution happens on a scale that transcends the boundaries between splitting two species. And these usually happen on large evolutionary scales over long periods of time. So we know back millions of years ago, about 50, 60 million years ago, we started off with having like similar types of species that lived in the waters and such, but eventually over time they changed to whatever was the best way to adapt to their environment. So, despite the differences, evolution in both of these levels rely on one big thing: mutation. So, as you can see in this little animation here, not as quickly, but there is some sort of mutation that does happen within a species' body. So, biodiversity is the various forms of life that can best survive in conditions currently found on Earth. So we got genetic diversity, species diversities, and ecological diversities. Variabilities among within the species. So like human population, for example, we all are slightly different based on skin tone, based on hair color, based on our jaws, based on our nose, our skulls, our hands, body structure. We are, even though we are all one species or one type of population, there is still variations or variabilities among within the species. Species diversity is the different types of habitats that live in the area. So, for example, we got a couple different types of snakes, we got a couple different kinds of butterflies, all somewhat close to the same type of species, but slightly different. Ecological biodiversity is a variety of biological communities that interact with one another. So, like all amphibians work with each other, even though they might be slightly different. Different types of plants work with each other, slightly different, and so on down the road. Natural selection involves process involves adaptations and differential reproduction results in beneficial traits being passed on. That'd be like your food, your water, shelter, and space. Without those four, at least, we'd be in big trouble. We also do need air, so that's your fifth one: basic needs of a species. Okay. So we had different variations. And for an example for natural selection, whatever for like this little example here for the bugs, anything that is able to blend in into the environment has a better chance of surviving. For example, all the other different colors except for the brown ones, because they are able to blend into their environment, um, they're able to survive, whereas the ones that were different colored, they were being picked off very easily, and not much of them survived after. So more brown ones were able to reproduce, whereas the colored ones, not so much. So adaptation is a special characteristic that enables an animal to survive, especially based on genetic traits. Sometimes there's not enough resources to go around, so some of the animals have to learn how to adapt to certain things. We as humans have learned how to adapt to certain types of environments. So if I was to live at the equator, I would not wear as much clothes because I need to learn how to help keep my body cooler. Whereas if I was to live up closer to the poles, I would need more clothes on just to stay warm. That is how I'm going to be able to adapt. Animals that are excellent at adaptations have a better chance on getting the resources that they need, have a better chance in surviving in the area. They are going to be the ones that can survive. Can be separated, adaptations can be separated into three categories: structural adaptations, behavioral adaptations, and physiological adaptations. Structural is body structures, allows the plants or animals to make plants or to find consumed food. So, for example, like for structurals, these animals here are very close to their environment. If you can see, this is a gecko that looks like leaves, and here we have another gecko that can blend into the rocks. Behavioral are the animal's actions, allow them to respond. So, for example, we got hibernation. I know many of you teenagers would prefer to be hibernating during the winter and sleep as much as possible. However, we were not born or did not have that trait to be able to do so. So, but for some animals like bears, they hibernate. Physiological is the chemistry. So some animals have poison in them, and that's what helps them be protected. That's their adaptation to survive. Native species, we're going to talk about the different kinds of species and such. Native species are organisms or plants that currently live in the area due to naturally occurring acts without humans' involvements. Here we got a couple different ones native to just Virginia. Um, just to name a few, there's hundreds of different native species, but these are just to name a couple. Whereas invasive species are the bullies in the area. They're not indigenous. We have brought them in, and there's no predator to stop them. All right, so it's very hard for them to be controlled. They will grow out of, like, they'll grow crazy without any type of predation or anything to help keep them in check. So, for example, like we got the English ivy, the emerald ash borers, which is this thing right here. We got the Japanese honeysuckles. We have zebra mussels, kudzu, feral swines. Again, just to name a few out of 100. Now, this depends on what type of species we have in the area, or if there's been any type of human involvement to cause endangerment, or if these animals just cannot adapt easily, which then these are the ones that are threatened to go to extinction. And just a couple of them, we got the bog turtle, we got the green sea turtle, we have the eastern black rail, just to name a couple that we have here in Virginia. Are there others? Oh, there's plenty. There's plenty throughout the world. Extinction is when we got something that completely disappears of a species from Earth. And just to name a couple, in Virginia alone, we have the green blossom pearly mussel, which is this one right here. That one went into extinction just recently, within the last 20 years. The Carolina parrot looks almost like the parrots that we see in The tropical rainforest, however, they were native to this area. They were surviving and whatnot about up until about 100 years ago, give or take, when humans decided to eradicate them and get rid of them completely because they thought that they were a nuisance to farmers. And now it's kind of slightly disrupted the ecosystem within Virginia and North Carolina, but we no longer have these type of birds. Do we still see extinction to this day? Absolutely. And one of the things that we see, like a mass, um, when it comes to a change, especially a geological event, is a mass extinction when there's at least 50% or more species that die off within a short period of a couple years. Not a couple hundred, but a couple years. Um, and that is something that we can talk about as a class. If we think that we are heading towards another extinction here soon, our sixth major one, or if we are just over worried and such. Um, so, yeah, that is something we could talk about. And as always, if you have a question, please come see me. But otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day. Bye.